Just so you guys know a little bit about myself, I started designing long before I could drive, and so a lot of this comes from years and years of experience in Solidworks as well as other CAD platforms. And as you can see, I love to go camping and fishing and whatnot with the boys, and that's a lot of fun. But we're going to get into today is the topics of how we become efficient with Solidworks and how we actually do that to help our department. Now, many of you, I recognize a lot of the names on the attendee list here, and you guys are CAD administrators, you're users, you're guys that just want to be efficient with how we work through getting the department efficient with it, as well as even individuals if you're a single user as well. So all of this can benefit you. It does take a little bit to get used to kind of how to work SolidWorks if you're brand new to it. If you've been using it for a little while, then some of these tips and tricks will help you. Look for those. And we're going to go through basically how to make sure that we're efficient in part creation, assembly creation. We're going to see how to go ahead and create a border from scratch, as well as leverage some other borders that we have. So those types of things are easy to do, but then taking that and scaling it, say, from a B to a C to a D, you know, those sorts of things can be kind of challenging, and I'm going to run through some tips and tricks on that as well. The last part we will end with is basically how to get your designs out faster using, you know, leveraging model information and completing the border and getting it all done very, very efficiently. So that's kind of our plan for today. As you guys have questions, don't hesitate to put it over in the chat window. We'll take a look at those and see what we can do to answer those straight away. But that's our plan. So without further ado, we're going to need to get some preparation in order. And as with anything, preparation is king. Fail to prepare, and you know, of course, you know how the saying goes. But what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a common area for our templates, whether that be a local folder like I'm showing in my example here. It could be a network shared folder, or it could be even a location in your PDM system. So all of those are great locations. It's really company dependent as to where you put that. I'm a single user, so I put it on a local folder. I could also put it in a PDM. We're going to go into a little bit more about PDM tomorrow, but that's kind of the basis. We need a spot for it. The place that SolidWorks puts it may or may not be the best location, so we're going to put it over in a folder that we have control over. So then we have to adjust SolidWorks to look for it. We use that in our tools options areas. We go through and put the file locations in there. We may adjust a few other things in there as well. And then we need to know what kind of properties we need to collect and things that we want to put on the drawing, things that we need to collect with the part as well, like materials and weights and revisions and so forth. All of that data that you guys have available is going to be leveraged and used whenever we go and create these new templates for us. So that's the preparation kind of items that we need to adjust and we need to collect, and these are specific for you guys. So if you use number for part number, or you use part NO, those are the things that we need to know, and that's kind of how it works. But the idea is what actually makes up a template. We need to understand kind of the fundamentals of a template before we can go and create it. Each template that we use for models, and I say models in general because it covers parts and assemblies, they work the same way. When we create them, it uses the document settings inside of SolidWorks for tools and options, right? So tools, options, and then the second tab that's in there is document settings. Anything on that page is used in the template and captured and reused when the user fires up that particular template. So we also see that the design window settings, whether or not we start in the isometric, whether or not we have all the planes turned on, origins, you know, visibility and view settings, backgrounds, all of those things are used and reused when we use the template. The material itself, for efficiency's sake, if you only have two materials that you make things out of, steel, aluminum, whatever it is, go ahead and put that in a template. That makes it much, much more efficient. You don't even have to set the material. You make the choice at the beginning and you're done. So if it's a common material, maybe 80% of the time we use the same material, but then the other 20% we use other stuff, well, that's fine. Use that one template and then alter it for only the 20% time. At least you're saving yourself in the 80%. So the other thing that we want to cover kind of near the end of the presentation is basically start parts and how we can create sketches, features, complete designs, you know, finished out to leverage that in use of a template. So we'll cover that just at the end here. One of the things that we're going to get into is drawing borders. So how we get to being able to do that. We're going to start with the component parts. We're going to go into drawing borders. We're going to go through automatic creation and existing borders. We're going to go through how to scale up and down those types of things, and be able to put zoning and margins on that. So those are the two things I'm going to get into right at the beginning, and then we'll come back to this and we'll kind of finish it up for our start model. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into SolidWorks. Now, I've reset my system so that it's starting as if I'd never touched SolidWorks before. So if you guys are new to SolidWorks, this is exactly what you'll see as the first screens whenever you first start SolidWorks. You'll see an agreement, legal terms and such. You'll go through and you'll see that it fires up several different add-ins. It goes through the process of doing that. And we're going to begin from basically nothing. And that's how we'll begin today's presentation. Excuse me. So as we get into the creation of the files, we're going to leverage what SolidWorks provides to us. You'll find a couple of different things and some techniques for doing this, but it's a good practice every few years to go ahead and go through this process again. The reason being is that as soon as I begin a part, I can actually leverage the SolidWorks template to start again. And we've discovered a few things through support and different things. If you're using a very, very old template, it may have some issues or dependencies upon new functionality. And in order to find that out, you can actually right-click on any one of the planes and go to the properties for it. You'll see that the template created date is the date that you're looking for. I've seen some date all the way back to the beginning of SolidWorks, and they're still being used. So be careful of that. And those are things that we want to take a look at. So let's go through basically how we go about this and how we go about leveraging a little bit of the information that we want. So when we look, we can see that we have the ability to go to Tools Options. We have the ability to go directly there using our gear icon. Sometimes it's at the top, sometimes it's over to the side. But inside of this, we have the Document Properties area. Basic things like choosing the drafting standard like ANSI or ISO. Those are initial selections depending on which where your drawings are going to be going. That's going to determine what the style looks like. Other things like I want to always use uppercase for everything. Those are options available in 2020, and we can leverage that and use that. You'll notice as soon as I make a change to any portion of the ANSI standard, it's going to become an ANSI modified, and that's fine. You have the ability to save these as well and reuse them if you need to. But in essence, we want to go through all of the options here in a more detailed fashion. This may take you, a good 20 minutes to do that. Today, we're going to just touch on a couple of things that are very, very important as far as the template goes. A lot of times we want to adjust the units. Sometimes it's using a 3 or 4 decimal type part creation method. Sometimes it's using a fractional basis. So if you're using 16ths and maybe you want to round, those are available to us. In this case, I'm using a mechanical part. Maybe it's getting machined, and so I'll use 3 decimals. Angular dimensions don't need to be quite that precise, nor length and mass section. We can use a single decimal. All of that looks great for our units. We also have some other things for detailing and annotations that we want to adjust. Display filters, whether or not we see certain things or hide names for points and coordinate systems, those are available. We can make some changes and adjustments to our annotations as well. So if I wanted to see a particular dimension or balloon with dual dimensions, I can make those adjustments here in order to have that propagate to every single part that I create. So once I've done all of my adjustments and I've made that just the way that I like it, I want to go through and kind of touch on the other areas that I want to have every time that I start a new part. We can go and we can add a material. We can use our material library. We can also use our quick materials to go ahead and put in a base material for this particular component. The reason we're doing that is to make sure that our densities and our masses that are coming out of our part creation are accurate. Now, when it first begins, the weight isn't quite enough for even an aluminum part, and so we want to make sure that that's there. The other things that we want to go through and adjust are potentially our properties. So a lot of properties that we end up with are descriptions, revisions, drawn bys, drawn dates. These are all available to us, and we might want to put in a base description or a sample that the user can see, but we can do that, and we can just bring in just a few of them. You'll notice that I'm not having to put any data in it, and that's potentially the best way to go, so that if it's blank, you'll know that the user didn't touch it, and those types of things. You can also insert, instead of just having a blank there, you could have a dash, and that would indicate things as well. So other types of properties that we want to pull in, like weights and materials, can have special selections or values. So the mass in particular is tied to the weight. Where the material, like I had selected over on the left-hand side, is available inside of here as well, and it reflects the evaluated value correctly. Now, those are just some basic ones that we can put in there, but you can put things like cage codes and material classifications, and all of those types of items can be put in here and stored with the component in order to be presented on the drawing later. So I have other adjustments that I might want to make for the view and visibility of different items inside of my design. Things like origins or you know, whether or not we see temporary axes and things like that. I can go ahead and adjust that and make sure that this view is correct for me. The last thing that I want to adjust is potentially scenes. So if I want to have a particular scene available in my manager, I might want to make that adjustment to include it. Now, I'm fond of this one, but you might find another one in that list that looks pretty good for you. And if you want to make the adjustment to, say, plain white, or even, you know, like a grayish background, or even like a colored one like this, to where every part that you create is that way, that's a great way to start. So adjustments here are going to be restored every time we start the template. So we've gone through and we've adjusted the settings, we've gone through and adjusted the properties, we've adjusted the material, and even the display window to have everything and all the details that we want every time we begin. So when we do this, we go through and we do a file save as. This file save as process will allow me to save the template, but you'll notice that as soon as I go to the part template area, it's going to redirect me to this program data SOLIDWORKS 2020 templates area, which is the basis of where it starts. I want to go to a different spot, right? I want to store all of my custom property templates into a specific folder here. So I'm going to say templates, or let's do event templates so I can see the name. Okay, so when I do that, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to see that this is a great start part, so I might say parts, let's give it a good name, inch, and then I might also add what material it is to indicate to the user, hey, this is a part, it's inches, and it's a steel part that we can begin with. So that's the easiest way to create one. Now, I started with the SOLIDWORKS one, and then I came back and I made the adjustments and saved it out. Unfortunately, right now, if I go to a brand new file and I go ahead and add one, I'm going to see part drawing assembly. Well, that's going to pull my default template. And right now that default template is pointed back to the one that I started with a few moments ago. So I want to make adjustments here to select the advanced area, and you'll notice that I still have a problem. I only see part assembly and drawing. I don't see the one that I just saved. So I need to make a few adjustments inside the SOLIDWORKS window in order to get that to come out correctly. So we're going to navigate to our General tab and then into our file locations in order to add our new spot. Now it's under SW Custom Data, and it's Event Templates because I just saved a file there. Now this template area may want to be the first position. You could go through and remove some of the others. If you end up with all of your templates in the right spot, you don't need the other ones. So you can go ahead and do that. as soon as you save this, it's going to prompt you for a few message boxes and potentially an elevation request, so you may have to get IT to help you out with saving that. But those selections and those settings that get adjusted are now available to us. So when we go back and we look, we can see the Event Templates tab is there. I see my part inch steel start part, and when I begin it, I can then see that all of the data is there. Oh, I guess I should get out of the first one. Let's go ahead and try that again. So now, when we start it up, we'll go ahead and see that all of the background is there. The plain carbon steel material is there. If we were to go and look up at the properties, we will see that many of those are already there as well. So all of that good information that I've stored with the file is coming back every single time. I don't have to do that 5 minutes of setup every time I go for a part. So those are great ways to begin and get a component file. Now, an assembly works exactly the same way. If I were to begin a new assembly, set up my display area, set up my properties, go ahead and get my document properties set up in my tools options, all of that setup is exactly the same, and we'll go forward with an assembly in much the same way. So without further ado, I'd like to take and go ahead and move forward with the drawing. Now, many times when we create a drawing, we create it from the part, and that's going to pull over some properties and things like that. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just start up a new drawing. Basically, the drawing that they gave us, we'll begin with that one. You can use one of yours. You can start with this one. Any of those will work fine. And what's going to happen is it's going to present us with a format size possibility. So I can choose what size I'd like to begin with. Maybe an A landscape would work well. We can go ahead and start there. And we'll go ahead and look at this. Now, it's going to begin with a model view and the options to collect that. But a lot of the title block information, you'll notice it says company name here, and it has a next assembly used on sometimes. Some folks like that, some folks don't. But this area here, most companies use something similar to this, where they have a decimal precision tolerance block, they have signatures, and then they have an area where you can describe what the drawing is and kind of what number it is. So those are general things that are available to us. But really, I want to take and I want to start again. I think this needs a bit of adjustment. So we're going to go forward with making those adjustments in a very expedient fashion. We're going to go through and edit the sheet format to start with. Using our sheet format tab, we can also, if this tab's not available for you, you can go forward with right-clicking on the sheet itself, right-clicking on the sheet on the left. You'll find this edit sheet format possibility available. Now, when you do that, you can go and see kind of what's going on inside the template. These tags, if they're not available to you, they're available in the view menu, depending on what you would like to see. Annotation link errors, annotation link variables, these two will control the visibility of those, how and when they happen. If it's a PRP sheet, then that means it's coming from the model itself that's placed on the drawing. So if you see that, that's what that means. Now let's take this and let's get rid of it. And let's start again. So I know that my drawing border, I would like to have 4 zones. This one has 2, 1 and 2, and A and B. When I do this, I'm going to set up an automatic border to do this. The automatic border allows me to delete and expunge everything. So I want to delete just basically all of it. I'm going to go ahead and select everything and get rid of it. Boom. So all of that goes away, and we're going to begin again. Now, the idea is that I can select individual rows, individual columns to get everything that I want on there. Now, the other thing that I want is the ability to, put this into a binder of some sort. Now, if that's the case for you, you can make individual adjustments to the border, and you can adjust left, right margins, that sort of thing. If you need a little bit more area for the hole punch to happen, those are pretty easy to do and make individual adjustments to it so that it margins in, and then you're in great shape there. Now, If your production and your output is to a PDF, and that's not necessarily necessary, but we can go forward and we can do that. Now, this looks pretty good. We have individual adjustments over labels and how far they are in spacing, and a whole bunch of settings here that we could leverage to make adjustment. But I like it. It looks pretty good. Except for the fact that I usually don't have the numbers at the bottom, and I might not have A and B on this side because I'm going to have my title block over here, and I may be putting file names at the bottom, or I may be putting some other information in that margin. And so those types of things, we want to add an area where we exclude that, and that's what this margin box does. We allow for the removal of independent sections, and you'll notice that that disappears when we get done. Now, that looks great. Now, I've got the border, but I don't have any content. So this becomes a little bit tricky. I want to take from one of my templates, and I want to put it over here. Let's see. I know I could pull up a drawing that's already existing. I could also pull up a drawing that is another one of our templates, and I can use it again. So when we go forward with this, let me see if I have one available here. Not so much. Let's see if we can go grab a drawing and open it up. Bear with me just 1 second. Let me get that drawing up and ready for us to use. Meanwhile, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to put it over in the chat. We'll see if we can cover that. And we'll see that we have a couple of files here. So I have a sample A size that I'd like to use and I'd like to leverage, right? So it's a drawing that already exists. It may have our border on it. It may have someone else's border that we just need to modify. But this looks pretty good. This is the way that I want to see it. It's got my proprietary information. It's got everything, and it's kind of low and flat across the whole sheet. Now, these types of things, we can edit the sheet format on this one, and you'll notice that some of the items do have information. Those are already being collected in properties. So I want to take all of this. This is what I want. I can go ahead and copy it using Control-C on the keyboard and make our way back to our new template and go ahead and drop it in. Now, if you get the click right, it's pretty simple, but I don't expect it to come in perfectly. And let me just phrase it that way. One of the things that's important is we want to line this up. Now, this one is just a touch wider. I believe the margins were a little bit wider than what we have here. And so we might need to make adjustment to some of the text, move some things around. But in essence, we want to take this and we want to grab all of it. Now, including this line and that one. I missed the two there. We'll go ahead and get both of those also. And then I want to take this and I want to move it. If I forget that this is on the sketch toolbar, I can use my search commands to go and use a move entities command. This is going to allow me to reposition anything that I copy paste in a from to positioning. So as long as you have a line that's referenceable to a point that is coincident with maybe say the edge of the border, something like that, it will lock down and allow me to go ahead and drop it in. Now, other things that need to adjust, I just need to move this text over just a little bit. I need to make a little bit of adjustment, and then I need to make sure that each one of my properties, and as you can see here, it says $PRP description, that's coming from this drawing. I need to make sure that that's going to happen. So those few adjustments will take just a second. We'll move and shift these items over just a little bit, making sure that I get just the pieces that I want. And I'll just kind of move them and shift them over a little bit. Perfect. Our lines need to adjust just a touch, and that'll be also very easy to do. All right, get the line. Easier said than done sometimes. Well, when in doubt, just move something out of the way, right? So we'll go ahead and grab it and put it in. We'll go ahead and drop that text back into position and all as well. So now we've got just a few things that are out of position, and it's these lines over here. One of them I don't need at all now, because the border is taking care of it. I've locked it into position. We'll go ahead and get rid of that one. And then the other one, we want to trim out or connect back to the border edge. Now, these zonal borders do have coincident relationships. You can also, if you need to, adjust individual spacing or design. So we can say, you know what, I want this particular area to be 0.27 or 0.275, you know, make adjustments for dimensions. Those are all available to me. And once you're done with the dimensions, if you choose to dimension these, you can just hide those dimensions away. They won't be visible on the resulting sheets. So now I've got a great looking border. It's ready to go. It's got the zones that I want. It's got all of the information that I want on it. So now we're ready to get back into a sheet mode and go ahead and save that template. So we can go forward with doing that, and that's a two-step process. We go through and we save the sheet format first. We'll go ahead and place it into our new custom data area with our event templates. Excuse me. We'll put it here, and we'll call it our event A landscape border. Now, you would use your company name, for instance, and that would be a great way to save the format. Now, that format is available inside of this template as well. So we'll go through and we'll save that second step of saving the template. Now, before we save the template, you may want to go through the Tools, Options, Document Properties area, adjust the unit systems, go ahead and adjust any of the settings for notes and sizes, all of the things that we did over in the part. We may want to go ahead and adjust that again here. But by doing this, we'll go ahead and navigate to our drawing templates section. It's going to keep us in our event templates area, and we'll go ahead and save it. I would like to call it a better name than that. So let's try that one more time. We'll just save it as event A landscape. All right, there we go. So we're going to end up with two of them. Let's get rid of the other one that was there. My mistake. Oh, not yet. There we go. I'll get it right. There we go. So now we've saved it as our Event A landscape drawing template. When we go ahead and create componentry, we want all of the information to be on the border. Now, you'll notice that I did some of that already, and some of that we need to finish adjusting. So I am in this template. I've saved the work that I've done so far, but things like descriptions, you'll see that this item is here. I want to go ahead and reproduce that so that I can show you how that's done. We can take individual sections or areas and kind of navigate and find things. So if you look here, I can see that some of the area has a few boxes in it drawn by a check buyer there, but I really need something that kind of looks like this, or maybe looks like this drawing number. That would be a great size and fit. Let's just inspect that and see what we're using. We've got a Century Gothic regular 12-point going in, and so if you want to reuse one of the existing notes, for instance, maybe this drawing number note, we can copy and paste it. We can also place in individual annotations and notes in the same kind of way that you would place individual notes on a drawing. All of these are adjusted using our text formatting. We'll make sure that we're using something that we like. Regular 8-point isn't quite big enough. Maybe we'll use our 12-point, and that will look a little bit better. So these are the things that we need to adjust when placing the notes themselves. But I want to link this to the property that is description, and it's inside of this drawing border. So we're going to go and we're going to link them using our custom property linking here. Now you'll notice that it does select the current document, and I don't have any properties in it just yet. So I can either choose this File Properties box, or I can go back to File and Properties, and I'll end up in the same position in the custom area. So I do want to add additional things like description and number. All of those are available and are going to populate the information down here. I may go through and add drawn by drawn date, approved by approved date, check by check date, all of those things that we want. And most of those are in the list, but if by chance you don't have one in the list that you need, like I mentioned cage codes earlier, if you're in that circumstance, you may want to just add it. And so you can type in here as well, not a problem at all. So our description, I'm going to give it a good description. We'll say event description for now. And that way I can see something. Once we end up with the title on there, we'll actually see that we have something in the box, and we can adjust formatting. Things like dates, you'll go ahead and put 99/99/9999 if it's a 4-digit year. That way your formatting is correct whenever you're adjusting it. Now it does look good. The event description is coming in. I still had some text in there that I do need to get rid of. And you'll see that I can left and right, and you'll see that bar moving up and down. If the text is editable, you'll be able to do that. But if I use the right arrow now, I'm going to go all the way to the end of this. And so that's something that may be a little bit unusual as you get used to these properties. Hovering over it will give me a description, a PRP description, and that way I know that I'm pulling it from a property within the file. Now, the reason for doing that is so that we can streamline and enter the data once. If it shows up 4 or 5 times on the drawing, then you only have to enter it in the one time inside the properties. All right, so now we've got adjusted. We've got everything that we want. We've got the size correct. We've got everything in there. We may want to take and just resave this. We'll save the sheet format once. Go ahead and drop that out into our area. Using our event landscape format, go ahead and overwrite that one, and then we'll save it out one more time to the template itself. There we go. So now we can go ahead and save it over this one, and now I'm completely finished. So that would be more of like an edit. If I had opened it up, go ahead and make a change to it. And in fact, that is something that I may be doing in a little bit. Is adjusting it just a little bit to create that drawing. Now, let's give it a try. I'd like to take and create a little bit of a shape for us to use on our start. Now, closing the drawing got us back out to the part that we had created, and we would just want to add a little bit of geometry. So I'm going to add a circular revolve, and we'll make it look like a flange here for just a second. That way we can use some of the information from it. Now, when we do this, we want to make sure that everything in the drawing has dimensional values. We want to make sure that all of everything that we want in the drawing itself can be shown on the drawing, or everything in the model can be shown on the drawing, and that way everything is there. So I'm going to use like a 6-inch flange, for instance. Give just a few dimensions on here so that we have enough to go by. Let's make it 1 inch, and then we'll give maybe an angle and a distance here so we can show a little bit more. All right, that looks good. Okay, looking good. So the idea of taking this shape from the part idea into the drawing idea, you guys are well familiar with that. There's no problem with this. We're taking that and we're using that every day in SolidWorks. But the things that I'm going to show you in the part creation are going to help speed you up. All of the dimensional values that I have here, as well as the properties that I've placed inside of my file properties area, should be coming across to my drawing. So let's take a look and let's make sure that we have a good description for this. We'll say sample flange, and we'll give it a good part number. And then today's date. Okay, so just a bit of basic information we've entered in into here. We'll go ahead and save the component as a sample that we can use, and then we'll go ahead and put it inside of our drawing border to verify that everything's working. There we go. Okay, so now that we can do this, we can go from to file and make drawing. We'll go ahead and use our event landscape template and see how we can leverage a lot of that information. All right, now importing design annotations it shouldn't be new, but we'll take a look at that. We'll see that we have the ability to go ahead and put in a left view of this. We'll see that we have plain carbon steel materials coming across. If we had a weight in there, it would come across as well. Go ahead and drop that in. All of this information needs to come across from the component. So I had already put in a sample description into the component, and you'll notice that the title is not being pulled right now. So that's something that I do need to adjust, and I want to make sure that that's coming in as well. We can add section views, any type of views that we want to use in the drawing, and go ahead and add those. Various model items should come across into that view as well. These are all drawing tricks that we have to get things going on the drawing and make that a very efficient method. But we really want to focus on the border, right? So I put a description in this drawing and I saved it, but really that's not the way that I want. I would much rather see the description from the component coming across. And using a sample part gives me that ability. I can now use that same custom property linking ability and take that back to a model. Now, this offers a few opportunities depending on what we choose, but in the sheet properties, there's the basis view, and it's usually the first one that goes in, and I can pull the description directly from there instead. Now when I save this template, it will use the first view that's placed on the drawing and pull that description in. Same thing can be done for drawing, signatures and dates. We can pull any of the information, drawing numbers and revisions and everything like that. So those are all possibilities and all available to us. So starting from scratch, getting all the way to something that is very efficient for us to start to use just takes a few minutes and adjustments in order to save it back and so that we can use that. Now, let's take this completely to the next level. Now, the one thing that I've done in this idea is I've drawn up a very simple flange. This flange is available to me. It has a single revolve item. It could be additional sketched items. I might need to make a few adjustments here to adjust the size. Let's go ahead and take that down to something thinner. That might work a little bit better. Oh, there we go. Let's put that at 0.5. No, 0.5. There we are, and then we'll rebuild that to give us. Oh, shoot, it didn't like my 0.5, I guess. Let's get that uninverted and we'll be in better shape. There we go. I was missing a dimension there, but that's okay. So now I have what would be similar to a weld neck flange and those sorts of things. And I have this, and I've drawn up and I've put bunches of features. I've put fillets. I've put other things in it. In fact, let's just drop a quick fillet on there so you can see there's more than one feature. Let's use that edge and maybe this edge. We'll go ahead and put on a 0.25 fillet. Got one. That looks pretty good, so we'll make sure that we can see that. That looks good in the preview. And anything else that you want to do to it, if you wanted to add holes to it, you want to add a circular pattern to it, do all of those things to put the flange together, that's a great use of it. But you'll notice right now, we want to take this and we want to use this again. This is going to be my same but different master model. So when I do a save as, I have the opportunity to save this as a part template. Now, this is going to go in and I'm going to say it's a sample flange. I might give a bit more detail. Let's say weld neck or something similar. And so now I've saved this as a template. So if I want to begin a process or begin a component that's really just the beginning, and I don't want to have to draw 5 or 6 things and get all of that basic information in there. It could be a box, it could be a sheet metal body, it could be all of those different things. But I go ahead and start a new component in order to use that sample and bring it up and use it again. Now, from here, using a start part, we have the ability to continue the design process. So you'll see that it's a brand new part, it's part 4, that I could save again as an individual part number. I could continue on the design process and add some holes to it. All of those possibilities do exist, adding keyways and the such. But all of that information can then be saved. Okay, well, so far so good. Now, what if I wanted to do something a bit more elaborate? Now, that's easily done. I have one at the ready for us, so we can take a look. Let's go ahead and find it. Now, I have it and it's not listed here. Let's go ahead and add that to our tools options settings in order to get our file locations in proper order. So we'll go ahead and add one more. We want to add this folder itself. You'll notice that I have custom data. So if I add this location, I did not add an individual folder within the templates area. So I'm going to delete that one out. So that one's gone. I'm going to add the base folder. So I'm going to go one layer up. So if you have different departments, if you have different divisions, if you have different customers, for instance, and you're potentially producing drawings for those customers, you may want to add it at a top level. That way the individual folders that are underneath will then start to show within this area. So I can see that I have templates, I've got tutorials, I've got my event templates, I've got, and also that extra folder that I showed just a moment ago. Now, one of those things is a skid, potentially. So I could do something even a little bit more elaborate than just a single component part. I can put together a weldment that has multiple features, multiple cuts, multiple trimmed and ideas. And at this point, the only thing that I have to do is change and adjust potentially a size. So I might say, all right, it's 185. I'll go ahead and accept that one. We might want to make it a little bit taller. And in this case, I don't know, I'm going to go 78 and then rebuild the model. Now, upon rebuilding, it's going to adjust both of the dimensions. All the dimensions, as you can see, there are several that have equations. The one here is based on the overall length, so that's getting adjusted. If you put together your models with a little bit of intelligence whenever you do the start parts, then it's a simple adjustment to get to the finish line very, very quickly and be able to do that with extreme ease. Now, this works for parts. It also works for assemblies. If you're putting together a kit of some sort, you can put together the component parts and they'll operate the same way as the features do over here. Now that leads me back to a bit of the finish line of the presentation today. We did go through the ability to create componentry. We were able to very easily see the document settings were found in Tools Options. We adjusted the design window and we saved all of those settings out. We then went through the materials as well and made sure that that was in our start component, and we reviewed our start part information to go to the next level of efficiency. Automatic borders are very easy. We can scale them up and scale them down as well. We can also use our start models and make sure that that is going through.